So I'm in the process of adjusting the valves. The gap, which is measured between the top of the bolt and the bottom of the valve, like so. And the as I said, the gap on the intake valve, which is what this is, should be 10 thousandths, and then the one for the exhaust valve next to it is 12 thousandths. So I have these pretty much set up. It's interesting, the way that these valves are adjusted is something that's foreign to me. You hold the bottom of the lift, or excuse me, the top of the lifter, like so, with a 1/2 inch wrench, and then you put another 1/2 inch wrench on the top nut, and then you turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on if you need to loosen and make the gap wider or tighten it up. On a car, typically it's different than that. You have, this is a flathead, of course, but on a typical car engine that is not a flathead, typically you have an adjustment around the, this whole setup is kind of like upside down. And anyway, to adjust this, interestingly enough, on a typical car motor of today, there's a set nut that you tighten down once you have achieved the right gap. This one is just a friction lock, so you turn this, like I said, either clockwise or counterclockwise, and it stays in place. So there's no locking nut or threads or anything like that. So I found that kind of interesting. But we're just about done with this project, and then I'll be putting a new gasket on here and bolting down the valve cover side plate for the last time, hopefully. I wanted to bring you up to date on where we stand with the project at this point. As you can see, we have begun the reassembly process. What I have done so far is reattach the side plate for the that covers the water jacket. So here is where the raw water comes in from the water pump, and it goes through here, goes into the motor, cooling it down. It continues on through here up to the thermostat, which is mounted about right here, and then it comes over here to where the manifold would be mounted and exits out the back. So that is on. Come on over to the other side, and I have the valve cover on. Permatex new gasket, and I rethreaded the 3 studs that hold the manifold on. Most importantly, and the biggest thing that has been accomplished, is that I've inserted the head studs. If you'll recall, some of them came out, some of them didn't when I when I pulled the head. So I've reinserted those, and I will tell you that on the ones that I put back in, I used JB Weld on the threads. So these are kind of torqued down pretty good into the block, and each of the threads on these studs, I put JB Weld on them. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with JB Weld. You put equal parts of the liquid or paste or whatever it is. You mix them together and then do your application. That might be controversial. I don't know. But I think some people would say, you know, if you use JB Weld in here, which JB Weld gets its name from it being like a weld. So in other words, these studs are not coming out again more than likely. I mean, I can't even imagine once this sets up what it would take to pull these studs, but I can't think of a reason why you would need to either. So it is what it is. If you want to weigh in on that, if it is a controversy, feel free to leave comments down below. But otherwise, the gaskets are ready to go on the head. It does require 2 gaskets. I already have the gasket in place here for the manifold to go on, which will go on once the head is on, and then the carburetor is mounted down below that. But that's pretty much an update for now. One last note, as I mentioned in previous video, I did rethread all of the threads in the block where these studs went back in. I used the masking tape there to measure just how deep I needed to go. I didn't need to go, you know, a full inch into there if it would even go that far. So anyway, I marked that, and that's as far as I rethreaded, and then applied the JB Weld each time I put a new stud in, put a stud back in. So that's where we are right now, and I'm going to go ahead and now put the head gaskets back on, and then we'll put the manifold back on, and we're getting really close to sliding this motor back into the engine bay. And as you can see here, I have not put the rear seal back on. I still need to do that, and I will show you that when I get to it. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the head gaskets on now. As soon as I can figure out how to do that. There we go. One other thing I wanted to mention is that before I started putting the gaskets back on and this whole part of the project, I rotated the engine until all 4 of the cylinders had gone all the way down to the bottom, and then I liberally put oil in each of the cylinders, coating the cylinder walls with a nice coating of oil. So when this baby starts, I'm thinking positive, when it starts, there should be a nice puff of blue smoke coming out the exhaust, and then it should settle down, and hopefully we won't have a incredibly smoky situation, which was one of the main reasons why I did this entire project to begin with. So one gasket is in place, and here goes number 2. One other thing I want to mention before I put the head on is that when I was rotating the motor to be able to lubricate the cylinder walls, I also stopped when the number 1 cylinder or piston was all the way to the top at top dead center. So now if I don't have to rotate the engine again, and I don't think I will, then we are all set to go ahead when I get to the electrical part of things and start to put the new points in and set the point gap. I don't need to worry about, you know, getting the motor to top dead center. It's already there and ready to go. All right, we're getting really close. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my vacuum and vacuum out along the sides here so that if any debris came loose as I was pounding the head into place, I can, you know, vacuum that out. All right, I have beat it into submission, and it is settled down on the block. And now what I will do is put the washers and the new washers and the new nuts on all of the studs and continue to tighten it down, and then we'll eventually get to the torquing process, which should be very exciting. So I'm just running these nuts down snug. I'm not torquing them at all yet. And I'm working from the middle outwards, as you would do if you were actually going to torque them down for the final time. One thing I wanted to mention too that I failed to mention earlier is that you might have noticed that I didn't put any Permatex or gasket sealer on the gaskets, and that's because these gaskets go on dry. You do not use a gasket sealer on the head gaskets. So just like I said, running these down snug. And what I am going to do, I have decided, I am going to, on these studs here and these nuts, I am going to put Permatex underneath the washer because this is where water circulates and that kind of thing. And I think that the reason that the studs did not come out when I removed the head down on this end is because there was water that rusted the stud and consequently rusted it in place, and I was unable to remove it. So I'll be putting, when I do the final, before I do the final torquing, I'll be putting Permatex down to this end. So all of the nuts have been run down on here. In this position here where these two studs are is where a bracket goes that is used for engine lift, and also the mounting arm or stabilizing arm for the alternator is mounted up here for the alternator to be mounted. You'll see that when I get to that part. And then lastly here, this is where the thermostat goes and the thermostat housing, which is why I don't have nuts on here, because the threads only go down about 1/2 inch, and of course you can see there's about at least 1 inch sticking out above. So I've got to put the gasket on here with the gasket sealer and put the thermostat in and all that. But for now, most importantly, the head is on. It's on permanently. I hope and pray I never have to look inside and see what's underneath this head again. So we're looking pretty good here, and on the final strokes. The JB weld that I put on the stud threads, as I mentioned, has now set up, so it's as secure as it's going to get. So on some gaskets and applications, I will use Permatex on just the metal surfaces that I'm putting a gasket in between. However, on this one, since there's a lot of heat involved, I am going to go ahead and put gasket sealer on both the metal surfaces as well as both sides of the gasket as well. The last time I replaced the thermostat and had to take this apart, I had not used that much sealer, and as a result I developed a leak which came out of the studs around this thermostat housing, and trying to make a big mess here, and then leaked over the top of the head into one of the wells around the spark plug, and I don't want that to happen again. Okay, so the thermostat is in place underneath the thermostat housing. I've got these two hold down nuts in place, not torqued yet. As for a torquing pattern, I was unable to find one anywhere, so I've kind of made up my own here, and I'll go in this order. I've torqued a bolt or nut a few times, so I'm familiar with the general pattern. Generally, you pretty much start at the middle and work your way out to the outside. So I'm going to use this guide that I've made up here to torque everything down, and I'm going to start out at 20 foot-pounds. All right, so I have torqued all of the nuts down to 30 foot-pounds. Specifications call for 35, and that's what my wrench is set on now. So far everything has held. I haven't felt any studs give or keep on turning or that kind of thing. So we do have 30 foot-pounds now on everything, and now I'm going to do the last 5 pounds. There's one. All right, now that my heart has calmed down after torquing all of the head nuts, now it's time to go ahead and put the manifold on. And for those of you that are not familiar with atomic 4 motors, this is kind of unique as compared to any car motors, in that this provides the exit for both the cooling water and the exhaust gas. So the exhaust gas comes out of the exhaust valves into this each of these chambers here, and is exited out the back along with the water. The water enters enters into this hole, runs along the interior of this manifold, and then exits out the back along with the water. So the water and the exhaust gases exit out of the same place on the transom. So to put this on is really simple. I've already got the gasket in place. I don't have to put any Permatex on the gasket or on the surfaces because only hot gas goes through this, not any kind of liquid. So I just line that up with the studs, push it on, put the washers and nuts on, and then as I have mentioned before, the carburetor mounts to the bottom of this and hangs down here. Here's your fuel pump. The feed line for the fuel comes into the fuel pump here. There's a strainer right here, goes into the fuel pump, goes into the carburetor, goes into the motor, etc., etc. So I'll just tighten these down, torque them to 20 pounds, and this part of the project will be complete. But you can see that the motor is starting to take shape. Okay, we're getting ready to put the rear seal on, and here are all of the things that I will need to do that. Here are the two gaskets that go on front and back of these two plates. This is the plate that holds the bearing that allows the crankshaft to spin inside the motor. And then this is the plate that goes on the outside, and you can see that that has the new seal that I installed at home the other day. And then this is the when everything's on and secured, then this is the retaining nut that goes on. This is the key that goes inside the coupling right there in that slot, and this is the coupling itself, and then this is the locking washer that you would use to lock everything in place. So I'll show you how that all goes. Lastly, this is Permatex, and this is the special tool which will allow me to press the coupling onto the shaft, onto the crankshaft. Okay, here is the back of the crankshaft where all of that I just reviewed goes on. This is a window by which you can look down inside to see where the to make sure that the key is going properly onto the shaft to hold everything in place, and make sure that the coupling gets pushed in onto the crankshaft far enough to where it won't leak and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we are there. Okay, as you can see, I have the two plates that I showed you earlier together, and they are the front plate of the two presses on, so you just use a rubber mallet to press it in, and then the outer plate goes just, you know, against the gasket, and everything's got the Permatex on it and all that kind of stuff. So now, and I also have the new key in place here that will go into the keyway that you see here on the hub. So now it's time to press the coupling onto the shaft. But before I do that, I need to put the 6 retaining bolts in here to hold the two plates together. So we'll do that now. So this is the setup and how this presser works. You put 2 bolts into the flange holes, and then that holds this cross member in place. The little dial up here works like so. You just kind of turn this on the screw and it presses the flange into the onto the crankshaft. We're coming down to the wire here now on the back of the motor. The coupling now is in place. I was able to look into the access area here and see that the front of the prop hub had met up with the back of the flange of the crankshaft. So I know that it's far enough in place and it won't go any further in, and it looks like it is where it should be. As you can see here, perhaps there's a slot for the locking ring. There's a bent tab on the locking ring that slides into that slot, and so now the retaining nut is ready to go on. And that will be the last of this project. And the way that the engine is held in place, so while you tighten that locking nut, is with this special tool, which is a long-handled piece of steel that you have the 3 bolts that screw into the back of the prop hub. Then I have a 1 1/8 inch socket on a ratchet, and put that on the nut, making sure that that tab stays in that slot. There are no torque specifications on this nut. So I just tighten it down very snugly. And that's it.